Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us live today during this week's office hours session where we answer your questions about anything appliance related live on air in real time. My name's Francesco, and I'm a sales manager here at Yale Appliance. And today we have with us Dennis, who is our appliance expert and our vice president of sales. Thanks for being with us here today, Dennis.
Hey, Fran, thanks for having me again, like doing this, and like answering any questions we can for folks that are out there that have them.
All right, great. So today we're going to start with a buzzword of 2021 that has led into 2022 a bit, and that's supply chain. So we want to talk about the appliance supply chain. What updates are there? What are the problems with the appliance supply chain, and how can customers work around these issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It is the pressing one, and truth be told, we don't have all the answers. Only we know that it continues to be a problem. We know this. People are kind of getting tired of COVID and all that it surrounds it, and our job is to try to make sense of sometimes what's nonsensical, even to us. So really, on the supply chain side, the manufacturers are still struggling with parts. We really understand as an American what a worldwide supply chain really is. And you really understood that the brands, while many times you thought were made in the U.S., you really understand how many bits and pieces and chips and harnesses and really are coming from all over the world. So to that end, they're still struggling with that. And they'll tell me that, on any given time, while they could have the best intent to make model X per se, they're literally looking at the parts that they're getting in-house and saying, okay, wow, we only got so many microchips or so many of these wiring harnesses. We can't make the model we wanted because it takes too many parts. We're going to have to pivot and make something different. So they will tell me, as I sit with most of the CEOs or operating officers of these companies, that they truly believe that we will feel the effect going into 2024. So even if things stay kind of flat. All that said, to the customer, it's really just to get in front of their orders. It's not a sales tactic. It's not a hook to get them in the door. It's really looking out for them and their projects. So, with that goes all the pricing and all the rest of it that surrounds the supply chain and demand. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, really leads us right into our kind of next question here. And it's really price increases. And, we've been talking about this, but what brands have price increases coming up? Or I should say, which brands don't have price increases coming up?
Yeah.
How it feels.
Yeah, it is a great question. And you know what? Honestly, like we said, it's coming fast and furious, many times with little to no advance notice, like typically said, and they all come with different caveats in terms of when we as a dealer or the customer has to take certain items by, so on and so forth. But just let's just take February as a snapshot. And when I say these brands, understand most of them have already had 2 to 3 plus price increases in the last fiscal year. But in the month of February, and even just announced today, LG will have a price increase in February. La Cornue, Sub-Zero, Wolf, Thermador, Gaggenau, Bosch, Beko, and Best Brand hoods. And then in March, it's Blue Star. The big ones, Bosch, Wolf, Thermador, Sub-Zero, these brands are starting on the 1st of February.
Yeah.
So, very short, tight time frames of notice, but you can't even predict this. So again, to the consumer, lock in your order. Beyond pricing, though, what we're finding is we already know it's a long supply chain and lead time, and it's a moving target. But if they don't order well in advance of these price increases, or as soon as we make them aware of the price increases, as soon as we're made aware, everyone's rushing to order these. So really, to wait until even that last day of the price increase, while you have the time to technically, maybe in many cases, lock your price, you are putting yourself further and further and further behind the production line, which has another whole effect to your project. So
Absolutely. And, we talked a little bit about this last week too, but how can a customer, specifically at Yale, how do you lock in those price increases and lock in that order and make sure you're protected if someone's nervous, if they're maybe, trying to figure out, what do I do at this point? I don't know if I'm 100% ready, but can they go ahead and protect themselves and lock those in?
Yeah, well, I mean, So with us, it's just a deposit. And it is, and when I say that, I want to be totally transparent. Of course, there are a select few items, a few, that if you're having a very custom built something for you in a color and a configuration, that once those orders are placed, they're kind of binding, but they're very few and far between on one hand kind of thing models. But for everything else, it's even if you know 3/4 of your order or pretty sure, put a deposit down. You still have full flexibility to change at any time. In fact, it's fully refundable up until the day before delivery. But the bigger thing is you get your place in line. Now, you could always change. So maybe a cabinet hiccup comes, or you're not quite finalized, but you're 95% sure, and then maybe something can't work or fit. Again, you can always make a rolling change. The only issue there is that rolling change, when it's made, you then start the cycle of waiting for that product. If there is a wait, it starts over on that one exact piece. But as we work very differently than most, because we control all that infrastructure and have the warehousing capability, is we're going to place your order as soon as you give it to us and try best we can. We're far from perfect in a COVID world, but to manage to that date best we can. So it's really get in line and just be transparent, and we'll continue to follow up with you on where you're at and how your project's going.
Absolutely. Those are great points. And for us at Yale too, we try to be as proactive as possible for when we know and as soon as we know, alerting customers, whether it's through email, through phone from your salesperson, because we know that these things are constantly changing. So we're trying to do our best to make sure that you get notified really as soon as we get notified and make sure that you have all that information. So thank you. Those are great answers. Next question. So the next question we have here is downdrafts. So should I buy a downdraft? Why or why not?
Wow. So this is probably one of the most popular questions out there. Downdrafts. For those that may or may not know even what a downdraft is, just you've seen them perhaps in magazines or had one yourself. A cooktop, if you will, just the top of a range put into an island or a counter that has a vent behind it that as you press a button, it raises and lowers, flush with your cabinets when it or in a low position when it's down, and raises up when you turn it on, so you don't have an obstructed view. Really popular or something that people ask a lot about, because truth be told, we do open floor plans in kitchens. And what we mean by that, we reduce the amount of walls in a kitchen space because we want the living room to flow right in, and many times a kitchen sitting space to flow right into the main kitchen, because that's how people enjoy that space. And we've put islands in many kitchens. So this idea of not having a large hood or you have limited amount of wall space, more and more we see the question of, can I put it in a downdraft? Now, I would always tell everyone that a downdraft should always be your last chance. While it offers the benefit of not blocking a view, the reality of it is smoke wants to rise and it wants to go every which way but straight to this downdraft. I mean, think about it like this. If your downdraft raises 12 or even, some are 10, but 12 or some even as high as 14 inches tall, your average stock pot might be 12 or 14 inches tall off your cooktop. So if they're at the same height, we know smoke wants to go this way. It doesn't want to be pulled back down. And then as well, there's a lot of twists and turns that it needs to make. So there's a lot of challenges with the downdraft. It doesn't have any space to hold smoke if it can't catch up. It's a last resort. So I would always say, let us help you, challenge the kitchen designer. And you always want to have a hood that ideally can vent exteriorly to the house when possible, and on a wall or a wall close to the outside of the home where it's going to penetrate and go outside. But yeah, downdraft is just when you've tried everything else and you just can't, and then we got to get into a lot of questions with the contractor to make sure that we do the best application given the constraints that you may have at that point.
Sure. And, you talk about the magazines and, sometimes it's not very practical with how they show some of those. So one thing I want to point out that, customers do point out to us at times or ask about this is, what are your thoughts on putting a downdraft behind a range, a full-blown range?
Well, if there's any manufacturers listening to this call, they may not like this answer, but it is the right answer. I can tell you the answer is you should never do it, period. And it's misleading and it's irresponsible, in my honest opinion, for some of the ads we see and these photos and claims that they make. Truth be told, I don't know in our history, and it's been a long one. I mean, been in business 100 years, but God, at least in my 20 years, I don't know that I have never, actually I can say definitively, I've never seen one go right. Yeah. And what I mean by that is whether it's the depth of counters that they don't factor in, that a downdraft, you see just a little thin part in the front. Somewhere in that downdraft is a big body of a blower. The ductwork needs to be there. So you got to factor in how that's going to affect your cabinets. And then again, you generally cook Monday through Friday on your front couple of burners, and that downdraft is sat way in the back of this unit. When smoke wants to go up, it never goes well. And the folks that generally ask that are generally, they're cooks. They entertain. They want it for all the right reasons. But if we absolutely will not sign off on it, we'd rather you honestly not buy it at all. But we'd rather do the right, responsible thing to say it's not an application you should ever try, and we couldn't in good faith sell it to you. Because it won't go right, despite what anyone tells you. And then you have it installed and you've cut your beautiful counters and your floors are cut up. And what do you do now? And we don't have a solution, because truth be told, you never should have done it to begin with. So I go on for days on that one, but as a passionate opinion, whether we told it to you or not, look out for yourself on that one. It's not a good idea.
I didn't want to get you all riled up with that question, but I can certainly attest. Anyone that I've personally been involved with, when a customer is trying to, it never ends well. It's always difficult. It's never as easy as anyone thinks it's going to be initially. Very difficult there. So thank you. So let's move on to the next question. So panel ready dishwashers. If someone's looking for a panel ready dishwasher to put a custom panel on as opposed to stainless steel or something like that, what are the different options? And are there any that they shouldn't panel, period?
Yeah. So when people traditionally are putting a panel on a dishwasher, they're imagining, again, maybe what they've seen or what they've owned, that as you walked into the kitchen, you would never be able to pick out which was a dishwasher from a cabinet. Truly, they want it to vanish, right? So when we talk about dishwashers in general, there are American and European dishwashers. That does not mean one has to be any more expensive than the other. They might operate slightly differently, but brands you might recognize on the European front, brands like Miele or Bosch, Beko, these are European brands. On the American side, a brand you'd certainly know would be someone like KitchenAid, okay? And it both offer paneled ready options, but 1000%, if you are going to do a panel ready dishwasher, I don't care what kind of cabinets you have, you want a European branded or European branded dishwasher, whether it's any of those brands. And there's more than those three. The reason being is that dishwasher is 23¼ inches deep, and standard cabinets are 24 inches deep. And a standard appliance panel is 3/4 inches thick. So this is going to flush up, totally flush, when you do a European dishwasher. If you do an American dishwasher, the dishwasher itself is 24 inches. Well, I already told you your cabinets are 24 inches deep, and then you have 3/4 of a panel. It is going to stick out beyond. So many times, if it's not a perfectly flat wall, you see the sides, but absolutely this panel is going to sit proud of the rest of your cabinets. No one would ever want that. So we are, again, in our stores, we're very disclosure, and not even disclosure to cover ourselves. We're going to talk to you. We show those applications side by side because we want you to truly have your aha moment to say, wow, I thought I wanted a KitchenAid, and it is a good dishwasher, but man, I'm putting a panel. I want it to go flash. I got to get over here and start considering some other brands.
Absolutely. And like you said, that's one of the things we try to provide educational stations in the store so someone can see European versus American, not only for dishwashers, but to see, what does an integrated refrigerator look like versus a built-in and a counter depth, because there's all this industry jargon and panel ready and all those things that we deal with every single day. But for a customer who's just shopping or just starting a remodel, to be able to see something in a live application really, like you said, provides that aha moment for them. So we try to really kind of showcase that, tell them, but also show them and kind of get that visual there too.
Yeah, I mean, the internet, even these, sometimes we try to slow it down because the vernacular we use every day, we're used to it because that's how we speak in the appliance. But the person generally buying appliances buys them once every 10, 15, heck, 20 years. So again, to really go somewhere that can educate you, and to your point, we've learned over time, when a customer can visually see why they're making a buying decision, they're generally happy.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to a question from Alexis here. So Alexis is asking, she's looking to purchase a new range, deciding on 48 and 60. Reviews on the 48s on Wolf and Thermador. Concerned that the second oven on a 48-inch is a little small. What are your thoughts on that?
Alexis, we are jiving here. My wife's a first grade school teacher. This means connection. We have a connection here on this one. So a 48-inch range, I generally would advise customers to do one of two things. For the price of a 48-inch range, if you could challenge your design, I would actually tell people to either do what you're doing, which is go up to 60, where you would get 2 full-size 30-inch oven cavities that are very usable. Or if you were still saying, hey, I'm thinking about a 48-inch, I would rather see you consider, if you could, a 36-inch Pro range that now has a big 36-inch single oven. And for the cost, you many times can buy a separate 30-inch wall oven and put that somewhere in your home, and a whole new world opens up to you. So now you have a big 30, and truth be told, in the budget process, the cost many times, depending on the exact model you pick, you could do a 36-inch range and a 30-inch wall oven, put somewhere else in the kitchen, for close to the same amount of money as a 48-inch range. With truth be told, that small second oven is tiny. You really can't do much with it on the daily. So I would say go to 60 or consider that 36-inch option and push yourself a bit on design. When you get to, Wolf to Thermador, these are the 2 top brands that we sell in that category. You're probably looking for different things, and both really good ranges. It could be, those will come down to burners, aesthetics, depth. Some of these ranges have slightly different depths front to back. Could come down to just the controls, the LED controls, which you like. I'd say this, I don't think, I would tell you there's no quality reason, in my honest opinion, one versus the other. They're both really 2 good considerations. You're really just coming back to probably some of the real fine details. And many times, honestly, it comes back to a spec. Someone likes red knobs, or they like the look of one, or they like the handles of the other. And those might be reasons to decide one versus the other.
Yeah, and kind of in that suggestion is great too, because a lot of times on a 36-inch range, you could do an all gas range with a gas oven, and that single oven can be the electric oven and really kind of give you the best of both worlds there too. So, where you have a lot of customers that sometimes kind of like, I don't know if I should do all gas, dual fuel. This is an opportunity to really kind of give you the best of both worlds there too.
Yeah.
All right, great. Let's go on to the next question here. So what is normal when first using a newly installed range? What should I expect when using the new range for the first time, and is smoking normal at first? We definitely get that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it actually, and I'm guilty as well. Most of us as Americans don't read the owner's manual, or if we do, we gloss through and get to the things we want to read. But generally somewhere right there on the first page, it'll talk about seasoning or the first time operating your oven. There are oils, absolutely. Grease fitting, different things that are in every range, whether it's an inexpensive to a wall oven to this, that you should absolutely burn off. Most of them will tell you, everyone's slightly different, but turn the oven up to 450 degrees or 400 degrees and let it burn off for 25 minutes, and you absolutely going to see smoke, and you're absolutely going to get a smell. It's just burning up. No different than if you've ever put in a new engine or anything really brand new that you turn on for the first while, you might get a little bit of a smell out of it that goes away real quickly, but it's absolutely normal.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. Next question is, so front load versus top load laundry, another question that we deal with on a daily basis here at Yale. What's the difference? What's the benefit? Should you pick one over the other?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've always been way out in front with the front load units. Truth be told now, full cycle, top load is still absolutely has a place and has a growing place. And that really comes from 2 issues. Front load laundry still to this day generally fit. It's load sensing. It's probably the most efficient still. The top loaders have come a long way, but still the most efficient. To wash laundry, you need agitation, right? So I always tell people this. Traditionally, if you were to ever go to a dry cleaners or to a laundromat, you would never see them pouring stuff into a top loader. Reason being, it's more efficient. It spins faster in its final spin, so it tends to extract jerk better out of the clothing. It also will get by that faster RPM or spin speed in the end, it's going to spend less time in the dryer, which is less wear and tear on your clothes. Truth be told, the dryer many times is some of the most harsh thing that you do to the things like cotton and fabrics is high heat, So less time, more efficient, gentler on your clothes. And the real reason why a lot of people want to top loading, sometimes for space, you have a restriction why, whether it's depth or a door can't swing or so on and so forth. And there's a place for top loader. There's two types of top loaders, one that has the old school agitator, that big corkscrew device, and some that have basically a nub, if you will, a small little propeller that looks in the very bottom. We do not like those small propeller models. It does not agitate and turn clothes. It just simply can't. It doesn't get that revolution of clothes, which really leads to good cleaning. We'd rather probably see you lean more towards a corkscrew device. A little bit more service on some of the corkscrew devices, depending on the brand. A little more water usage. Absolutely, still though does have a place. And I just tell you there to be careful of those brands that you pick in that category when you get there. The reason why a lot of people had front loading and went to top was because of an odor. There was a mold issue. This thing on front loaders, it's almost like putting a lid on a plastic container. If you left a little water in there and opened it up a few days later, you say, wow, that smells. It was airflow. There's brands solving that. Some have fans in their final cycle. Some have a rinse of the door gasket in the final cycle. A brand like GE has really nailed it with a thing called Microban, which is odor is mold resistant, bacteria mold resistant material. You'll notice it, and that is really doing a great job of not allowing it to. It's proprietary, and not allowing it to grow at all. Any of this, and so but that's where you got a lot of people maybe bought front loading and are leaning more towards top loading the second time because they had that bad example, But there's solutions out there both ways. I guess it depends.
And that's where you see a lot of that technology come in the front load washers and top load too to some degree, but certainly front loads. And like you mentioned, front loads being so water efficient, they have nice features like an automatic load and go dispenser, where one of the things before, because they don't really use a lot of water and you don't need to put that big cap full of detergent in there. You can preload this for 10, some 20 washes, depending on the brand. And, it automatically dispenses the right amount of detergent for you, the right amount of time. So it really does a nice job of kind of taking all the guesswork out of washing the clothes and really gives you that best wash as best as possible.
Yeah. Front load laundry is like a produce scale in a market, I always say. You can't go home and look at your front load laundry today. You cannot find one that has a selector for small, medium, and large loads. It doesn't exist. And as we grew up, they all had that feature. Well, that's because the top loader needs to fill and submerge the laundry in water. So it's trying to have you tell it how much water it needs. The front loader does it by weight. So if you put in just a few things, it's going to use the bare minimum amount of water because it tumbles within to wash those clothes. Load it chock full, it's going to sense that by weight and know to fill more. So really kind of a smarter way to wash in a lot of ways.
Excellent. All right. So we have another question from the audience here from SB. For a new build, they have a Heston 36-inch all gas and thinking Gaggenau speed oven, but wondering if there's any other 24-inch speed oven you'd suggest.
Yeah, I mean, speed ovens, honestly, they exist. A lot of people have them. Well, Miele certainly has speed ovens. Really, a lot of the brands do. Fisher-Paykel, I'd almost be remiss to find a lot of the pros that don't. Yeah. Fisher-Paykel, Thermador, Gaggenau, Miele, SKS. I mean, it's kind of going on and on. Speed ovens have kind of become a standard thing. Truth be told, Gaggenau with its speed and specifically steam ovens, along with Miele when it gets to the steam ovens, really great features. Should maybe consider SKS. Now, not in a 24-inch unit, but that's at the higher end of LG. Really cool. Has a speed and steam all in one. So, feature that's just come out. So I don't think there's a bad one. Gaggenau, Miele certainly have been at the top of that echelon for an awful long time. But I would also say, depending on how you intend to use it, there's other really good options along the way. I can't say there's a bad one.
Excellent. All right, so let's go on to the next question here. So induction cooking, do you recommend induction products and why?
Yes, we do. Primarily because, guys, if you're actually reading in the news, depending on the city that you're in, government continues to push green, less penetration to the house, more efficient means, right, just to be more responsible to the environment. And you know, the induction cooking solves a lot of problems. It's faster. It uses the ferrous metal in the pan. The metal works with basically a magnet that's below the glass, and those two types of metals create a friction. Now you don't see the friction, but it's there. So safety. If you're nervous of small children, if you're nervous of maybe sometimes you have elderly that are living with you, and we get nervous, they forget, or heck, if you're me, you could forget a lot of things on a daily basis. But you know, if there's not a pan on that stove, it's not hot. If you could have the stove turned up to high, and it doesn't heat.
Even pets sometimes too. People say,
It's
you know,
almost
a cat
impossible.
jumps on there or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we say that. People worry about pets or kids and touching it. So really, if you have a pan in there, you're intending to cook, right? So there's probably an awareness. Aside from that, super fast, responsive. It'll generally outperform most of the pro ranges you could buy, whether it's the most expensive one you could buy. It senses the pan. It's just very flexible. And then more so, the government's getting behind it because it's efficient. It's 95% efficient, and it's faster than gas. So less combustibles, a lot of these reasons. So the reason why I say it, we've always supported it for safety, speed, efficiency, cooking, performance, high to low response. It's like a wall switch. It's just great. But as much the government wanting to be more green, you're seeing more and more code going out there that new construction in cities are going to have to start going over to electric and away from gas as we move forward. And as that happens, that'll bring this awareness. Understand, induction is a European standard, and it's been out for 30 years. It's not new. It's developed. It's real. We're just now over the last 15 years, and more so over the last 5 or 6, getting more and more. And you're picking it up because it's almost getting harder and harder to buy a standard electric cooktop.
Yeah.
Or many times a range. Or now you're going to find this dream gas stove you've always thought about, and you're seeing induction burners actually built in addition to gas. So it's here to stay, not going away. It'll be a slow grow, but as the government and whatnot gets behind it, it's going to become more mainstream.
Yeah,
and you're not giving up performance. So
yeah, I would definitely encourage anyone who's shopping for gas range or anything really, absolutely demo an induction cooktop, because you'd be surprised at not only the safety, the performance of it, from high power to low simmer, and the quickness and the speed of how fast you can go from a high to a low for someone that is, especially someone that cooks a lot. You would absolutely love the features that induction gives you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when he says demo it, truly most stores, good stores, should have a variety of induction available to turn on and test, as well gas, so you could truly put them next to your 1 and 2 choices and really see for yourself. That's kind of when you're like, you have your aha moment again and say, wow, okay. You still, there's something to see in a flame, and gas certainly is not going away, but it has a real place.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Well, that concludes our office hours session for today. And once again, thank you for joining us. If we didn't get to your answers today or your questions today, leave them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you in the comments section or answer them live next week. Again, we'll be live again next week, Thursday, 4 p.m. If you enjoyed your time with us today, please don't forget to like or subscribe wherever you're watching, and have a great rest of the week, everyone. Thanks again, Dennis.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Fran.
Thank you all.